you there's always a bright side and there's always a dark side. For example, when I used to work for Real Madrid in the basketball section, when you get to talk to those guys that you used to watch in the TV, that's just
Yeah.
crazy, and it's a personal feeling that to me is just
Okay.
undescribable.
Right.
It's impossible to describe, yeah. And but of course, I was saying now there's the dark sides as well, but you always have to highlight the good sides of the good side of things.
100%. And there's always. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today I'm here with Felix Martin. And Felix, first of all, thanks for taking the time. And how's life in Madrid these days?
Spring is coming, Ole, and along with the spring, allergy is coming, so I'm suffering a little bit these days, but it's quite okay. It's quite okay. I cannot complain.
That's good. Well, I know the struggle with allergies for sure, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it's a pleasure having you part of this. Of course, we're going to dive a little bit into your background in the industry, a little bit about your educational journey as well at Real Madrid Graduate School, some of the cool things you're working on these days. But before we jump into that, first of all, for those of you that are tuning in, make sure to like the video, subscribe as well. We're about to reach 1,000 subscribers, and we're about to have over close to actually 160 episodes now. So it's been a big milestone coming up as well. And so thanks once again for joining us. And Felix, like why since we're just getting warmed here, we talked a little bit before we started as well. But talk a bit about your journey in the sport industry. How did it all start for you?
When it comes to my personal case, Sole, I've always been a huge sports nerd, a huge one. I've always practiced the sports and competed in sports since I pretty much can remember.
Right.
And I think competing in football and tennis since always. So I felt like I wanted to kind of reflect this passion of mine in my professional career.
Sure.
So that's why I studied journalism. And then I studied a master's degree in Real Madrid's graduate school in sports journalism and communications. So that was somehow my first step in the sports industry.
Right. And obviously you're the Eurosport OTT editor at Warner Bros. Obviously Discovery, it's owning the whole thing there. Talk a bit about like some of your key responsibilities and tasks, and a little bit about like how you ended up in that role.
After my contract finished with Real Madrid, I received this phone call from the director of my department, Fernando Ruiz. He's quite a famous journalist here in Spain. And the reason why I received this phone call was because the basketball press officer, Jorge Pérez Vara, Jica, of Real Madrid, he had a close relationship with Fernando. And thanks to that, because he knew how I worked, because I used to work for the communications department, first in basketball, then in the kind of corporate.
Sure.
Thanks to that, I ended up working for Eurosport. Eurosport is part of the Warner Bros. Discovery portfolio.
Yeah.
And I've been working here for almost 4 years now. And yeah, since that time, I've realized that the OTT landscape and environment is a really fast growing, changing business.
Right.
Because everything has changed a lot since these 4 years. And what we do in my department, because I'm part of the digital department, because we basically take care of a digital project, is basically enhancing the user experience. So we kind of work on the user journey that the user experiences once he enters the platform, the OTT. And so what we basically do is try to make the user's life a bit easier.
Right. It's always about making things simpler, for the fan, for the viewer, making sure that they have a great experience. And you were mentioning, the changes that you've seen over the short 4 years in a sense. Talk a bit about, some of the changes that you see working in the space.
For example, in these 4 years, right now, nowadays, I just cannot think of one main sports media or sports company that doesn't have an OTT. An OTT, for those that don't know what that is an over the top, which is basically a streaming platform for both live and VOD on demand content. And in these 4 years, I have seen how many media like the Zone has grown a lot, at least in Spain and both globally. In these 4 years, we've invested here in Eurosport a lot of money in rights as well, and we have grown like 6 or 7 times in these 4 years
Right.
the size that we had when we started working on this project. And you know, I think that quite a good example of how OTTs are growing is the example of the World Cup, the past World Cup in Qatar, where we saw that the right holders here in Spain, MediaPro, they launched an OTT that worked for a short period of time, because it worked for a month and a half or 2 months, and they got like tens of thousands of subscribers. So I think that when it comes to OTTs in these 4 years, and we can see that with Twitch as well, with the streaming platform, we've seen how the consumption habits of the user have changed a lot. Because in the end, not much people first of all watches live content, because there's a lot of people that watches content on demand. And then there's a lot of people that doesn't watch that content on TV and does watch that content maybe on desktop or on mobile or their tablet, on whatever device they have.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, it makes a lot of sense, and it just showcases, I guess, how that industry as well kind of had to grow very fast, and probably got a very nice boost out of it through the pandemic as well, in a sense, because everyone was kind of forced watching things from home, your phone, whatever that might be, right? So I'm sure that also kind of sparked or spiked, the demand in that regard too.
Yeah, I think that the pandemic was kind of the boom of this platform, right? Like kind of the explosion of the development of these platforms, but mainly because of what you're saying. Because there were a lot of people that had a lot of free time, and we live in a digital era, and people access content and knowledge through their hands, and what they have in their hands, their mobile. So people tend to access to content through their mobile. So what happens? A lot of people developed OTTs.
Right. And obviously before, all this, like your current job, you obviously, were an alumni at Real Madrid graduate school. Talk a bit about, how the program has helped you in your sports career, a little bit about, like, what are some of the key things from the program that you have taken with you?
I would say that the main thing that I take from the master's degree I did in communications and sports journalism, it's the big network of professionals from the sports industry that I got to meet. Because in the end, I think that it's important for someone that it's starting in this industry, right? Because I believe that it's at some point a very closed industry. And I think that it's for someone that is young and that it's eager to enter the industry, it's a key thing to have a solid network of contacts. So I believe that the main thing that I got of this master's degree, apart from the program, was the network that I built thanks to it.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, like, obviously networking is a big part in the industry, and I mean, like, as you kind of explained too, it's a little bit in a sense how your new opportunity also, came across, right? Obviously you got to deliver the value, but it was a networking effect there too. And so talking about, that networking effect, a little bit about, in perhaps like also the OTT space, obviously, as you said, there kind of like been coming more and more players into the field. Talk a bit about, that networking effect in the space.
In OTTs?
Yeah.
Well, recently we had a space here in Madrid in which we got a couple prizes for Eurosport.
Nice.
And and there were many people attending that how do you call that? Seminario, how do you call that?
like a conference or?
Yeah, that conference, exactly. That conference, exactly. And in the end, you arrive there being the young one, because I'm only 28 years old, but you're part of this digital project. So you got to somehow, I think that people see you like the young kid coming in,
Right.
and it's important for them to understand who you are and how you work and how you think and
Right.
and how you work on a daily basis.
Right. No, it's 100%. And I mean, like, I think something you're bringing up there is something, I guess, in a sense, a lot of students are facing, right? Going on these networking events, going these conferences, just, oh, you're being looked at as
Yeah, I think that coming to every public act that you have is very important when you're starting in this business, or at least in the sports industry, because
right.
in the end, what you get from that is building again a solid network of contacts.
Right. No, it makes a lot of sense. And obviously before your role at Warner Bros. Discovery with obviously Eurosport, you had the chance to work at Real Madrid, as you were mentioning. Talk a bit about, the lessons you learned from that role that took with you into your current role.
Well, I think that I grew a lot professionally, both personally and professionally, working for Real Madrid,
Yep.
because I think I worked there for around a year and a half.
Okay.
First as a student and then as a trainee. I started working at the basketball communications department, as I was mentioning,
Right. Right.
with the press officer and the second guy in charge. And I worked there for around 6 months. And I remember working like from Monday to Sunday, like pretty much every day, and spending as many hours as necessary. Because in the end, sport is a business that doesn't stop, and sport
Right.
has its main activity during weekends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember that year and a half, like I would say the experience of my life working for Real Madrid.
Hmm.
Those first 6 months in which I was in the basketball team.
Right.
It was the last year that Luka Doncic was playing here in Europe. He's now
Hmm.
playing in the NBA in Dallas.
Yeah.
And what we did was basically acting somehow as a point of contact between media and the club.
Got
So
it.
we basically managed media inquiries. We attended interviews between one player and the media. We organized the EuroLeague Media Day, which was quite a challenge. It was quite challenging. It took place right there in Valdebebas in Real Madrid's city, in Sports
Right.
City.
Yeah.
And those 6 months gave me the chance to have to work for another year for Real Madrid, because after those 6 months I had a job offer from Mediaset, which is quite a big media group both in Italy and Spain that operates worldwide.
Right.
And I had a call from Marta Santisteban. For you to have an idea of the experience that she has,
Sure.
she was the press officer during the Real Madrid Galacticos era. So she had to deal with David Beckham, with Zinedine Zidane, with Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos, Raúl.
Yeah.
She has pretty much experienced everything when it comes to communications and corporate communications, internal communications, external communications, call it what you want.
Right.
Like she's a 360 communications professional.
Yeah.
And she right now takes care of kind of the, I would say, corporate part, and she takes care of the press relations.
Got it.
So I had this job offer from Mediaset, but I obviously said no, because Marta called me, because Gica, the press officer, Jorge Perez Vara, the press officer from the basketball section, called her, saying, hey, take a look at this guy. So I was very lucky. I was very lucky to receive that phone call and work for Real Madrid for the press department for another year. And that year again was just unbelievable. We had many things. We actually got to do many things, and I believe one of the things that I remember with the most love actually was the final of the Libertadores Cup, because it took place in the Bernabeu, a match between Boca Juniors and River Plate.
Right.
So we basically had to work with Fox Sports, which is a huge media group that were the right holders of the final for South America, and with CONMEBOL, which is the South American FIFA, and South American UEFA, sorry.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because we kind of had to organize all the communications and media media things media things in like 3-4 days, and we spent many hours working there. I remember that the day of the match, I arrived at the Bernabeu around 9 a.m. and I left like at 3 a.m. in the morning. Remember after the match, the team celebrating in the locker room. You have to try to manage all the journalists that want to get interviews. It was crazy. That day was crazy. I remember that day with a lot of love. And then besides that, we managed the relations with the press. And we organized, for example, Eden Hazard's presentation, Thibaut Courtois presentation, many acts from the club, every La Liga match, every Champions League match, every Copa del Rey match. So you need to have meetings with UEFA, you need to have meetings with La Liga, with MediaPro. So it was professionally a year that I will never forget.
And talk a little about, I mean, like, a lot of great stories there, and I mean, like, I'm sure there was a great experience just being able to witness all of this, of course, take it all in, and then as you were saying, it's just football is just and the sport industry is just moving so fast, right? Like you were talking about, okay, a lot of the things are happening during the weekend is like things that you have to expect, right, going into the industry. And you were mentioning obviously the professional growth, but talk a little about, and I really like that you kind of mentioned that. And let's talk a bit about your personal growth that you had there, a little bit about, what are some personal growth factors that happened during that time. And of course you can mention things that happened, in your current role too, but talk a bit about that, because I think it's important to talk both professional and personal growth.
What I would highlight the most would be probably working under pressure, first of all.
Yeah.
And then feeling responsible enough to do the job that you have to do. So you have to deliver.
Right.
When I speak about working under pressure, I mean working under tight deadlines and having to deliver.
Right.
I speak about having all the media exposure that you have when you work for Real Madrid.
Right.
I speak again. The tight deadlines was a crazy thing. And when I speak about being responsible is that I was pretty much a kid. I'm 28 years old, and it happened like 4 years ago. So I was like 24.
Right.
And in the end, you have to somehow be mature enough to be aware of the position that you have at that moment. And even though you are the intern, at some point you need to set some limits with the journalist, because in the end, we journalists try to get as much information as possible.
Yeah.
And when you work when you work in the corporate part, you have to set some limits, because if not, the journalists and the
keep asking, keep pushing,
Exactly. So yeah, what I would highlight would be learning and striving when working under pressure, and of course being very responsible.
Right. 100%. I think there's some really great advice that you're sharing there. And since we're kind of like into the space of sharing, and I didn't think we're just gonna bring this in right away. And let's talk a bit about what tips do you have for students looking to get a career in sports. Like what other tips and advice would you give them?
I think that you already mentioned one, and it's that you don't have a schedule when you work in sports, because of what we were saying, that sports most oftenly happen during weekends. So you need to be open to work on Sundays, on Saturdays, maybe miss someone's birthday, I don't know.
Right.
But you need to be open to have a free day on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, because you have to work during the weekend. And then I think that everyone that works in sports or that wants to work in sports needs to be or to have a huge passion for sports in general.
Right.
And what I would recommend, actually, if someone wants to work in sports, would be to, I don't know, do a master's degree, get some internship, take an eye on LinkedIn, set some filters in the companies that you want to work in. Get an account on the project that you guys have in Sporting Global that posts job offers. In the end, you have to somehow to follow the opportunity and to somehow to hunt that opportunity, you know. Because in the end, as I was saying, it's not easy to get in this industry, and when you get that opportunity, you have to embrace it.
Right. No, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? And I mean, like as you were talking about, is taking advantage of the opportunity that is there. Because you never know, of course, where that is coming or when it's coming, but once it's there, you gotta grab it. And
yeah,
and
of
then
course, because
at the end of the day, make the most value as you can.
yeah, of course, because if not you, there's many people, there's thousands of people or hundreds of people that that would love to get that opportunity. So you have to try to make the most of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like since we're also talking about trends, things that are happening in industry, and as you were saying, the OTT space is growing a lot in the recent years and will continue to grow. And since obviously this is growing a lot, it's obviously a great opportunity for potential students, new professionals, kind of exploring that market. So in that regards, like, what are some trends, must know things for any sports students trying to understand the OTT space?
The first thing that I would say is that you don't necessarily need to be a journalist to work in a digital environment. That's the first thing, because I'm a strong defender of the idea that everyone, no matter what they do with the professional careers, can do any job if they have the will to learn, and they have the will to spend as many hours as necessary to learn that job.
Right.
That would be the first thing, because what I do nowadays, I think that you don't have to be a journalist to do it. You could be a lawyer, you could be you could study informatics, or you can be a doctor, whatever. You just need to love sports.
Right.
You have to be a sports nerd. That would be the first thing. And then again, you have to be open to at some point sacrifice things, because I think I've said this many times, but in some cases working during the weekends is not easy. I'm working this weekend because we're having a huge cycling career, and I would love a huge cycling race, sorry, and I would love to be with my friends, but I have to work. So you have to be open to with the idea of working during weekends.
Right. And as you were saying, that's like just typical sports, right? I mean, like, well, the majority of people are sitting at home watching, the game, watching the cycle event or whatever it is, right? And once you're in that game, people often think, oh, I want to work, for Real Madrid, or I want to work this club because I'm gonna meet the player, right? I'm gonna do this, and then it just, well, most cases that's not gonna happen, right? You're just gonna be working and you're gonna be busy doing your task from, like, as you were saying,
Yeah, of course, you there's always a bright side and there's always a dark side. For example, when I used to work for Real Madrid in the basketball section, when you get to talk to those guys that you used to watch in the TV, that's just crazy, and it's a personal feeling that to me is just undescribable.
Right.
It's impossible to describe, yeah. And but of course, I was saying now there's the dark sides as well, but you always have to highlight the good sides of the good side of things.
100%. And there's always, it's more for the purpose of understanding that going into this, it's also things that people need to keep in mind, because often we just see, all the good stuff, right? And of course, that's where the passion comes in, and you will have like those experiences, something you should aim and fight for, and understanding, okay, it's gonna take a lot of work from you, and you might have to sacrifice some stuff along the way.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course.
So to wrap up here, Felix, I wanted to, first of all, thank you for taking the time, for sharing your stories and your insights, with the Sporting Global podcast. And if there's one, final remark you wanna touch upon before we wrap up, what would it be?
I think I would say, think of your next step. So think wisely what you want your next step to be, and when you get that opportunity, embrace it. embrace it and make the most of it.
Awesome, Felix. Well, with that, thank you once again for taking the time, and it was a pleasure having you part of the podcast.
It was my pleasure, Ole.
Absolutely. So for those of you, that have been here all the way at the end, make sure to like the video, subscribe as well, so we get weekly tips from leaders and industry professionals like Felix every week. Make sure to do that. Subscribe and, ring that notification bell, all the good stuff. And if you haven't already, make sure to create a free user at sportingglobal.com so you can, find relevant job opportunities, connect with great people in the industry, and find relevant programs, like the Real Madrid Graduate School and what they're offering there. And then, of course, if you, just wanted to, start learning, get some good insights, make sure to check out academy.sportingglobal.com so you can take great digital courses on demand, so you can take whenever you want and learn. It's always good to keep learning. So, Felix, all the way here at the end, we have kind of like a, how can I say? It's like a Sporting Global podcast tradition that we have here. And you might be familiar if you watch some of the episodes, but if not, I have to teach you a little bit of Norwegian before we wrap up.
Okay. I'm quite good with languages, okay? I'm quite open to learning new languages.
Well, there you go. It's you said you like the pressure, so now we're getting the pressure.
Okay. The only two words that I know in Norwegian are Erling Braut Haaland and then Martin Odegaard. So
and now you will have a third word that you will learn. So with every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian. So that's what you have to say.
Vi snakkes.
There you go. See, easy.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Felix.
Thank you very much, Ole.